So our next okay, sorry. I wanted to make sure we got our videographer going here. So, all right, so our next presentation is by Robbie Stewart. So it's his discussion of secrets. So just a quick introduction. He's a social engineering practitioner, and there are many tricks that he uses to gain access to facilities and ways that he coerces individuals into helping achieve goals along the way. He'll be talking about some of these tricks, tactics, and techniques to hopefully make life harder and your security better, right? So, because if he can get into these places just by talking his way in, that's not good. So, because then you get physical access, and as we know, if you have physical access, you have a lot more capabilities than if you're trying to do it remotely. So,
like everything Daryl just did.
Yes, you can do everything Daryl just did if you have physical access, which is, the best way to do it. So, Robbie's a consultant, security consultant for Rapid7, working on engagements that range from network, web application, mobile, electronic social engineering, physical social engineering, pen testing, and he breaks into things for a living. So let's talk about it, right? So let's give Robbie a welcome, and pass on the microphones to him. So, good to get double mic'd up.
Yeah, as long as you have it.
All right. One there, and one there. All right, cool. So, hi, everybody.
Hi, Robbie.
How are you guys doing today? Beautiful Saturday today, isn't it? Nice weather. All right, so we're going to talk about some secrets. Some of them are secrets and some of them not so much secrets. So this is my agenda. I'm going to say hi to you guys. And we're going to talk about social engineering, talk a little more about social engineering, and kind of finish up talking about social engineering, then roll the credits on it. So hi, I'm Robbie. I got to stare at my slides because I wrote this like last minute. So yeah, I do all of those things, and I like to break into buildings. It's a ton of fun. So I want to get an idea of who all's out in the audience today. So do we have some like C-level people out there? Do we have admins, network admins?
Oh, yeah.
We got some security practitioners. You guys like to break into buildings too?
Only when we get paid to.
Only when we have offers.
Only when you get paid to? All right, I'm doing it wrong. So have any of you guys ever heard about social engineering before?
Yes.
Damn, that was a resounding yes. What button is it? Is it that button? Check. So I'm just going to jump into it. I'm going to tell you guys some stories, and we're going to walk through like what went right, what went wrong, and how to fix things. And I got to jump over here for a second, sorry. Oh, okay, yeah, it's that one. So working for Rapid7, doing social engineering engagements. I've been all over the world now to break into buildings. And they're a ton of fun, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. And this first story we're going to start off with was a lot of fun. It was in New York, and I was told by my point of contact that their building was one that I was not going to get into. So I chuckled and said, we'll see how well this goes. So I dressed in a very formal attire. It was for a bank. So I wore a suit vest and everything. I was to the T, looking super, super, super fancy. I went in towards the evening-esque time frame. We're going to say it's probably like 3 or 4 o'clock. It's getting towards the end of the day. If I get in, I like to kind of hang out and wait until people leave, and then I can do a lot more nefarious stuff with nobody else around. So I approached the building, and there were 2 individuals that happened to be standing outside that were smoking. So, of course, I walk right up to him. I start smoking too. And I try to go into one door, and it turns out that door's never worked for getting into the building. So I was like, oh, crud, that sucks. But they were like, oh, no, the door's over that way. I was like, okay, cool, I'll go that way. And one of the guys started to leave. So I was in between these two people. So it was one person, there was me, there's another person. We go into the building. They have a very small foyer with a bunch of elevators around, and you have to badge to walk past this security guard. I just followed right in suit and just walked right behind them. I didn't badge at all. I just stayed in between, sandwiched in between these two people, passed right past security, jump on an elevator with one of the guys, and looking for the button that I need to push to go to a certain floor and don't see it. So I'm in the wrong elevator. Okay. I'm in the wrong elevator. So I'm going to have to pass by security again. I'm just going to make it quick. So I ride the elevator with the guy, and we kind of shoot the shit a little. And I get to the bottom floor, jump out of the elevator, and just like dash over to one of the other elevators and ride it up to the floor that I need to go to. Security didn't stop me. They had no issue with me being there. So I get off on the customer's floor, and they have a couple of them. Talking to the point of contact, I already knew kind of some of the layout of who was on what floors and some floors to avoid. So I went right into the floor with my point of contact and just met with him because it was towards the end of the day for him. And I wanted to show him, hey, I'm here. I made it in. We're going to go ahead and continue to do stuff, but I made it in. He was kind of surprised. So we talked about a little bit of the floor layout and where he really wanted me to try to get into. And then I just spent the rest of my day trying to get into the rest of the building. So the inside of their layout, they have badge access for every single door. There's some small hallways off the elevators, a little bit of a lobby area in some of the floors, but the rest of that, you have to have badge access to get behind any and every single door, except for their little cantinas that they have. So I could go into the cantina and stand around looking like I'm eating a lunch or just kind of hang out for a second and then just tailgate literally through every single door inside of their office space. If I couldn't find someone to tailgate into an office space with, then I would walk up to a door and knock on it and wait for someone to come get me. It was pretty bad. I got into every single space that they had. One of the other things that I noticed, and this is kind of where some of the secrets come in, probably not so much secret to a lot of you people, but they had motion sensors for, motion to exit sensors for a lot of the doors as well. Usually you can kind of can them. If you don't know what canning is, you can of compressed air, flip it upside down, spray it towards the sensor, it'll trip the sensor and you can open the door. So I needed a can of air. I didn't have a can of air. But you know who usually has a can of air? IT was the one thing that he wanted me to try my hardest to get into. He said, IT is the spot. Like, you cannot get into IT. It's going to be the hardest thing that you will ever do. So I get into IT, and I walk around for a minute, and I'm asking them, I'm walking around, and people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just having problems with my keyboard, and I need a can of air. Do you guys happen to have a can of air? And one of them's like, oh yeah, we got a can of air. Here you go. Fell for it. All right. Thanks for the can of air. And then I left. And I walked around some of the doors trying to can them. Their sensors were definitely offset, so it was a little harder to point the can of air towards the sensor, and I couldn't trip any of them, actually, the ones that I tried. I also tried, so nobody was stopping me. Like, there's definitely people wandering around. People saw me. I noticed that they also had, aside from just motion to exit sensors, they had the big red button on the side of the door you could push if the sensor went off. It was their emergency exit if power was lost to the building, kind of thing, or something like that. But there was a gap in the side of the door. So I started thinking about it and found a coat hanger and just bent the coat hanger around. And I was reaching through this gap in the door, trying to get leverage to push a button to see if I could trip the door, and had this lady come out while I was doing that. And she looked at me like I was weird. And I was like, I'm just checking all of the doors, seeing what I can and can't do with them. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm not lying. And she left me. She didn't force me out or anything, but she left me. And some time had passed, and with all that time passing, I ended up wanting, just about to leave, but I wanted to check in with my point of contact first to see if he was still around, to let him know, hey, I got into everything that you guys have. I found all kinds of stuff that's wrong. And he had left for the day, so I was standing in the lobby area on his floor, and these two guys jump off the elevator, and it turns out one of them's like the VP of IT type of thing, and he confronts me like, we caught you, and I was like, well, I was leaving, so if I hadn't stopped, you wouldn't have caught me. Then we did the exchange that you do, and we were leaving. They took me down to the bottom floor to escort me out of the building, and while we're doing that, the lady that had found me, she was standing with security and was like, that's the guy. It turns out she thought I was super suspicious, so she emptied her floor. Like, she told everybody to leave, which was a good thing in a way. I could have been a really bad guy. So she heightened security, or at least alerted security. There's a dude on this floor who's doing some really weird stuff. And I mean, they didn't really catch me until I was leaving. And then we did the whole exchange again. So let's disseminate this. What went right? What went wrong? What could they have done better? So I'm going to kind of open it up a little. This is my story. What do you guys think from what I've told you about this story that they could have done?
Question.
Shoot, John.
When you went into the various rooms, did you either take artifacts or leave any kind of evidence to show that you were there?
That one I am going to say I can't answer.
What were their documented policies for how to treat somebody who was...
I'm not aware of. So think physical security for a second.
Did you try to clone any badges?
No. I did no badges. I had no badges on me. No fake badges, no real badges.
Was that out of scope?
It wasn't out of scope. It's just not how I rolled.
Were they wearing badges?
Yes, they had badges.
Were they on display the whole time?
Trying to recall, and that I'm not entirely positive of. I don't think every single person had a display of a badge.
Right. Were there any man-trap entrances?
No, there were not. All right, so this is the way that I see it. First things first, I tailgated past security. Security gets an audible bleep when you badge in. Mine didn't make that noise. I just followed a person. Security should have stopped me. Issue 2, the elevators. Elevators didn't have badge access control. I could jump on any elevator and go to any floor that I wanted to. That's a bit of a problem. Now, the people, their culture. They were very welcoming. Because of my attire, I looked like I was important, even though people had never met me before. So if I knocked on a door and said, I need in this room, they would let me in the room without confronting me or questioning me. That was an issue. People I did interact with, again, didn't confront me, didn't question me, didn't say, I don't know who you are, I need to kind of validate who you are. And then we can move on. So that's kind of the soup and nuts of it. Things that did go right is the lady that did catch me doing something bad, she did report it. In the end, she did report it. That is good. I think she should have done a little more, in my personal opinion, but she was a small little lady, and I can understand her intent to not.
Kick you in the crotch and pound your head into a door?
Yeah, she'd go judo on me. Wow, smash.
Or maybe their policy was not to engage and just report it.
It could be. So these are the things that I pointed out to them. These are ways that you might want to think about enhancing some of this stuff. Okay.
Did they have any metal detectors? Are you aware of this?
No, there were none. Not that I'm aware of. I meant to point out when I jumped to this as well, like, intro, the stock Rapid7 slide. There's a couple of those. So our next story, and just a heads up, I probably won't take a whole hour, hopefully not. My stories are kind of short. So this one is one of my favorite engagements, and this one's actually really short. So, office building, somewhere in the country, non-disclosed location. Perform all of my typical OSINT ahead of time. If you're not aware, OSINT, Open Source Intelligence Gathering, it's finding anything and everything you can beforehand, or during, or whenever you want. But I look up the building, I look up the company, I look up the people, I look up their culture. I try to get as much information about it as I can, draft up fake looking badges. So, hey, this is a badge that looks like it's legit. This was one of those engagements where things kind of just did not go my way a bit of the entire time. It's a short engagement. It's just a few days. I think it's either 2 or 3 days. And one of those days is usually allocated for report writing. So chalk it up to 1 or 2 days worth of actual work. I go on site. I'm driving from my hotel to their office space, dressed in appropriate attire and so on and so forth. I get a flat tire on my way there. So I was hoping to get there in the morning. I wanted to arrive bright and early and walk in with everybody else and just do a bunch of tailgating and see where I could get into this building. So that plan is foiled. Not going to get there in the morning bright and early like I wanted to. Instead, I spent an hour and a half changing a tire on the side of the road with whatever little tire iron came with the car that I rented. So I finally get to the office space a little afternoon, so hoping to catch a lunch crowd coming back. There's no lunch crowd. The building that the company's working out of, it's 2 stories. They own the 2nd story. Anybody going upstairs works for company. That's pretty easy. I walk into the building. There's an elevator that goes up, and there's a lady standing in front of that elevator. Cool. I'll just follow this lady. If they need badges, use the elevator. She'll take care of me. I stand next to her while we're waiting for the 2 seconds for the elevator to come down. Hi, how's your day going? She kind of looks me up and down and goes, nope, and walks over and takes the stairs. Well, that's a little odd. I don't think I smelled that bad. So I jump on the elevator and ride it up. Get off the elevator, and their office space is tiny little area outside of the elevator where the stairs come up. Very small. There's a hallway that leads one way, a hallway that leads another way. Again, all doors require badges. And when I get off the elevator, I wanted to make a dash into the restroom and just kind of hang out for a minute and gain my composure. When I go into the restroom, I see the lady down the hallway standing in front of another doorway talking to someone, and she goes, oh, that's the guy. Oh, God, that doesn't sound good at all either. So I hang out in the restroom. I'm washing my hands, about to leave. This other guy's washing his hands, about to leave. Try to strike up a conversation. Hey, man, how's it going? Day's been a rough day. I had a flat tire and all that junk. And the dude does not engage me at all. Absolutely not 1 second is paid attention to me. When he's done washing his hands, he steps back away from the sink and just stands there and waits for me to leave first. So these people are on point. They are watching out for anyone who they do not recognize. Smaller company, everybody seems to know everybody. Okay, so I'm hanging out in front of one of the doors, right beside it, playing on my phone, checking my emails, happen to catch a door as it was starting to shut, because the one lady didn't pull or push the door shut behind her, unlike everybody else who made sure that it shut behind them. I go into the office space. I walk around for about 5 seconds is the video that I have of me walking in one loop and then back out because there was nowhere to sit down. Every single cube was filled. No conference rooms. Oh, crap. I can't do anything here. I call my point of contact, we talk about it. He's like, I want you to try to get in one more time. And as we're talking, the manager of IT, I believe, comes out and she starts talking to me. Who are you? Are you here to see someone? I give her a name of a person I know is not in that building and how we're supposed to be meeting in this building. She's like, oh, okay, all right, and goes back into her little space. And then comes back out about 5 minutes later and confronts me again, like, I'm sorry, man, that guy doesn't work in this building. I don't think he's coming to meet you, so you gotta go. And I was talking to my point of contact, and we were like, all right, let's just let her know. And I let her know, and when I let her know, she let me know an email had gone out. When I first got to the building, there's this strange guy walking around the building that looks like XYZ. Do not engage him. Man, these people are on point. So we do the debrief call afterwards, and I come to find out that what this organization in this location had gone through before I got there. They went through some active shooter training. And they were all very aware of the possibility of someone coming in and how to handle someone coming in. Ooh, I forgot. I did get back into the backspace one time. After talking to my point of contact, there was a gentleman and a couple of ladies that happened to go through a door, and I followed them in. 2 steps into the door, the gentleman stops me. We're gonna go talk out in this office space, and he looks like he's ready to punch me in the face. So I let him know right off the bat, like, hey man, you're supposed to be doing this stuff. Get LGL free credit, don't punch me in the face. So yeah, I found out that they went through active shooter training. So these people were not going to let something happen to the rest of the people that work there, or at least let everybody know if someone suspicious is standing around in their building that they did not recognize. So this was a little harder to tear apart what went right or what went wrong, especially which standpoint you look at it from. So what went right? Nobody engaged me. Not a single person would really interact with me, except for the lady who wanted to validate who I was and why I was there. So everything else just went wrong for me. They did everything right. I did everything okay, I guess. They were just on point. So that's story number 2.
What was their business space?
What do you mean?
So were they a bank? Were they private?
Non-disclosed location.
What was their business? What did they do?
That I'm going to keep secret too.
Oh.
Active engagements, non-disclosures and whatnot. So that's why I have this lady here. She's, stop. In the name of... All right. Insert stock photo number 3. Just flip to the other way.
You worked on these slides pretty hard. Didn't you?
I did, man. I beat myself up on these ones. No, I did. There was this little number and stuff I had to get rid of. It was, yeah. God, that was so much work. You know how long I had to make them sit there to take that photo?
2 seconds.
No, I made them hold it. I was like, I want to make sure my aperture is right. It's going on the Instagrams. So story number 3 is, this is a recent one actually, and why I feel that having multiple practitioners on a social engineering engagement is very beneficial to us. Because we all play off of each other, and when you get a group of people together who just work really well together doing very evil things, good things happen for them. So this one, I have to give a shout out to Shane and Leon, because they worked with me on this one, and if it wasn't for them, we would not have achieved what we did. So this is a story about 2 office locations and some branch offices for a company. We happened happened to do an internal assessment for them the week prior, so we had some insider information as well, which was very beneficial to us because during that assessment, one of the things that was discovered was a file that contained everybody's badge codes. Yay! We can beat anybody! So we started off the engagement. We went to, so they had two offices, two big offices. One was HQ, the other one not so much HQ. So we started with that one. We started there, and going into the building, we had badges that worked for every single one of their locations, except for me. Turns out the badge that I had worked for 0 locations. Awesome. And we went in individually too, so I was kind of SOL. I walked up to the door, tried my badge, it didn't work. It's like, oh crap, step to the side, start playing on my phone. Guy walks in, I tailgate behind him, follow him into a cantina and sit down and message to guys like, where are you guys at? We need to get this thing going. Well, inside of that building, we had access to everything. They didn't really require badge access once inside the building, so there wasn't really any spaces that were off limits to us, except for a few areas, but the badges we had got us into those spaces. Well, inside of the office, we drop devices onto the network, do some network hacking. We found they had small little conference rooms set off for training. We were able to do bad things to those training computers and steal passwords. And my favorite part was their data center, because their data center door was pretty weak. Common interior door opened inward, so the latch smashes shut. The gap between the door and the jamb was a pretty decent size, so using a big piece of flexible, really strong plastic, we were able to shim the door open and get into their data center and have physical access to all of their servers, which is server room selfie time. If you guys have ever heard any of my other stories, the one about the power plant and selfies, that was that whole point. Oh no, go back. So inside of this building, we rummage for a few hours, and on the way out, passing a guy, we see he's wearing a shirt that is branded with the stores that we're going to. So we ask him, hey, where did you get that shirt? And he's like, oh, they're in the basement, but it requires some special access to get down there. Well, we got special access, so now we have shirts that match, and found some stuff in the basement too. There's some skeletons down there. And the next day, we start off fresh. We went to one of the branch locations, and Shane and I, dressed in our fancy new shirts, just walk right in and tell the lady, hey, we're from corporate. We got some stuff to do in the back. We're going to go do some stuff in the back. And she didn't stop us. She's like, oh, okay. And we go into the back and make sure their network is doing network stuff and what network stuff we can do on their network. And we can do network stuff. In that back room, they also had boxes that were documentation for things that had really important identifiable things on them. So we stole those boxes. Well, at least stole one of those boxes, walked it out to the truck, and made sure we got a lot of photos of the internals of that box and the paperwork inside of it. And then promptly returned the box because we didn't really want to take the stuff, and found out that the lady had saw us going out, and she was a little curious because she saw me stumble at one point, and she's like, I didn't know what you guys were doing, but I didn't see you take the box. So we let her know what had happened, what it was, and talked her through the process of what we do. And then finally, we went to the headquarters. And getting into the headquarters was easy. We just tailgated some more, really. shimmied open some doors that didn't shut all of the way, and again, had access to everything. Nobody stopped us. My first stop was to my point of contact's office, who was not there, so I left him my business card just to let him know I'd been there. And then after getting into every door, I mean, at that point, we've reached a point of we've gotten so much and we've done so many bad things already. While we were in the other facility, or the other office building, we also took devices out of their data center and got pictures just to show to the point of contact we had devices. And we've done so much, it's now let's be brazen time. So with people in hallways, we're walking up to doors that are shut and locked and trying to jimmy them open using shivs and knives and big pieces of plastic stuck into a door jamb. It's like, oh, hey, what's up? Just trying to get the door. It's stuck. One of their policies as well, and we like to push on some of these when we find them out, they had a policy that when you enter into their main area, you have to badge in before you walk through the door. That's just a policy thing. Anybody could hold a door for you, which we tried. Like, I kept pushing that limit. Like, every time I was near that door and there was someone on the other side, oh, hey, let me get that for you. See who's gonna just walk in, or I would walk up to the door and see if someone else would just let me in. Like, we become very brazen at this point. Like, somebody kick me out of the building, please. And then finally, we get in touch with our point of contact. We have a little debrief from him, and we come to learn, because we were going to do some other of their little office locations. We were going to go do some more of them, but we came to learn that the lady that we interacted in that little space, she actually sent an email like, hey, I didn't know corporate was coming into town today. This is kind of weird, these two guys. And they're like, oh, that's not us. You should kick them out. But we were long gone by then. So then they boloed our faces to every one of their branch locations. Like, don't interact with these two dudes. So that going for us. We apparently really made the physical security chief guy very upset about that. But yeah, so let's talk about that one.
Just curiosity question. During brazen time, have you ever said, hey, I'm having trouble getting into this area. Is there somebody who can help get me in there?
No, actually, I usually stand in front of that door and see if I can break a way into it. Like, I let people walk past me while I'm on my knees with a shim trying to pick open a door or something. I've done that at other engagements and had people come up to me, hey, do you need help with something? I just told them, like, I'm literally with lock picks in a door in an open space with a lot of people around. Just look at, oh no, I'm just checking the locks. Oh, I got it, thanks. So yeah, I become very brazen at times. Like, now is the time that you need to be kicking me out 100%. If it wasn't when I first walked in the door, it's now when I'm like walking around with like boxes of stuff. Like, you've never seen me before, but I have a box full of things that I'm leaving with. You need to be stopping me. This is bad. So yeah, that engagement, not the lock picking, but the office spaces. What went right? What went wrong? What could they have done better? It was a little hard because there's 3 locations that we talked about.
They were looking for policy. Did you say the policy was must badge?
Yeah.
You said it wasn't being enforced.
Yeah, there was a fair number of people who would say, no, I got a badge, but there was definitely a handful of people that just, oh, cool, thanks, or come on in.
It's sort of the opposite of your previous example where it's just an outright lack of training. People don't know what to look out for.
Yeah.
You've got physical controls too that will be addressed.
Oh, definitely.
The door should be able to shoot everything.
Yeah, any door that we came across that we couldn't badge into because there was like a tier higher than what we could, but only one tier higher, we could basically shim it open. Either shim it or using a shove it tool. Just pick the door open with that.
Throughout like all your stories, it's people leaving you alone. Like, you know, you turn your head for 2 seconds and somebody will just walk away.
That's it. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
You mentioned that you just dropped devices on their network too, so they know like port security.
Yep, no NAT control. Yep. that was definitely a thing. So one of the first building we went into, we were also in their training room. Their training room, they didn't do any disk level encryption, so we pulled hashes and had domain admin creds off of those, which is pretty bad.
What was their two-factor auth, or was it just user?
Just user auth, yeah. It was domain auth, so. They had that capability. The devices actually were only using a local account, but they were on the domain and happened to have a DA in memory, so there's that.
When you're like walking through with a suit, is it like fear of authority or just like people being polite for the accounting for you?
I talked to my point of contact on that one with the suit in New York. He said it was a bit of a fear of authority because only the top C-level people were dressed that high end. Everybody else was just a button up and tucked in. So it was a bit of a fear of authority.
I have a question.
Oh, of course.
What the size of the companies among those you described? Would they be small, medium, large companies?
One small, one large. I don't know like where they fall in that like 500 range or whatever. One of them is definitely a really large company. You would know it. One of them is a smaller company.
Well, I was I work with different companies, and I understand problems with physical security and ability to social engineer accessing. I would not claim that none of companies with which I work would not have it happening in your practice. But to me it seems like very strange how effective tailgating work. I remember it doesn't apply to companies anyway. I mean, I'm not saying you, but it's very, very unusual.
Yeah, it's a lot rare.
I also noticed that you mentioned in your story it was a bank, right?
Maybe.
But it's how it works. So they had controlled access to perimeter, through perimeter, but they did not have any security guards, physical people who would see that you were doing anything. That's what you suggest. That's how I understood. Correct me.
Maybe. It depends on what you're talking about. There are some facilities that I went into that had physical security guards there, and then there are other places that do not.
I also noticed access to elevators in your field story. If they have normal control access, average run company with a control access to elevators and multiple floors, they will all, and if people should have access to certain floor, of course, their system control regulations will allow them. They need access to elevator in general, and after this to certain floors. Didn't apply to your case.
Yeah.
There's a lot of screwed up. Now, what I've also noticed, then you talked about this lady, I think it was first engagement, I guess, who confronted you, and you said that you here to see somebody.
Yeah.
She went and didn't she try to contact the person?
I assume that's what she was. So the question was did the second talk that I was talking about, lady came out into the foyer area and confronted me. She's the only person I really talked to in the building, and I told her that I was there to see someone, and then she left. And then she came back again. So I assume that in between those two interactions with her, she was confirming if I was supposed to be meeting somebody or not.
So it was a real person, you gave real name?
Yes, yeah, I gave real, yeah.
Okay. What I took of, and I love communities, but what I took of this, you dealt with companies, obviously, companies which knew that you have this problem. That's what your service problem was for. Not just randomly pick, they decided they need to do.
Oh, yeah. Companies engage with us. I mean, as Rapid7 in our service, they engage with us. Hey, this is the engagement we want to do. So. Yeah, potentially. Sometimes people engage with us to do these engagements to just get a baseline first off and see where they're at. Sometimes they're a lot more mature and they understand how to mitigate some of these tactics that we deploy, and they want to assure themselves that their training and everything else that they're implementing is effective and it's actually being disseminated across their organization. So they just want to make sure that everything they've done is actually working. So yeah, it happens that way sometimes. Anybody else got anything?
Actually, two questions. The first one, when you actually met your contact, doesn't that change the rules a bit? Because now people within that office have seen you with somebody, and isn't
No, nobody else had seen us together.
Okay. And for the second one, how would that have been different if they had not just had the active shooter training? If they would have 6 months or something of that nature, where
I'm not sure.
Wasn't fresh in their minds.
I'm not sure, and I don't know specifically like what the time frame was since they had their active shooter training, but I do know that they told us they had just recently gone through it. They didn't give us like a time frame for it though.
Active shooter training. Listen up. It's of course important. It's necessary, but it's absolutely worthless. It should go along with normal security, physical security.
I would agree entirely with that. One of the things that I started telling people was this training, like doing some kind of active shooter training, actually seemed to make them more aware of the situation because they weren't just concerned about, oh, someone's going to steal my login. When it's more focused on the company, it seems people don't take it as personal, but when you tell someone, hey, we're going to give you training to protect your life because someone might come in here and try to take it from you, they take it a lot more serious.
But also, the second one was more of a smaller company.
It was a much smaller company.
Those are often more difficult.
Much more difficult. Yeah, I did a power organization sometime last year, maybe towards the end of the year before that. It was a very small power company, and they were out in the middle of nowhere. They had one office building and one kind of remote office building, and I couldn't get into anything because there's probably 50 people in the company. Everybody knew everybody. If I showed up at one place and said, hey, I'm new and working for these people, they're like, you don't work for us because we're that small. Like, we do our daily meetings at one place and then come back over here. Like, this is a really small company.
Yeah, that was the small company doing.
Small companies are more difficult. They're not undoable or not doable. They're definitely more difficult when you're talking about really going after hard on the social aspects. Sometimes you can get lucky and sneak in a door and hide in a bathroom for 6 hours, and then everybody leaves, and you have full access to a building. That's doable too. I mean, change your shoes halfway through and you'll be all right. That one's for you, Steve.
It's also including small businesses. All of them have more accesses in the alarming system. So if you are in the building, capture if you're done.
Sometimes I've been in plenty of buildings that have nothing like that. I've been in some buildings that have a door alarm for the local PD, and you just wait until the morning to sneak out. You don't want to trip the alarm. That sucks.
Okay, one question for you. Do any of your clients in your engagements, do any of those companies, the employees know in advance? I mean, besides obviously your people.
It's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other kind of answer. I've done engagements for some companies that do tell their employee base, hey, we're going to be doing this kind of training or this kind of assessment, be aware of it. And I like to encourage my customers to not do anything like that because you're not getting a real answer. You're just getting a checkbox if we did this and nobody we caught him doing it.
Look at the flip side. Look at phishing exercises. In organization, I've worked in organizations where, that's a regular monthly thing. And the click-through rate, still pretty consistent. People know it's coming, they do it anyway. So
that's unfortunate.
It's very difficult to work. They know that there will be calls, but they are still, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this. But they still cannot distinguish if it's fish or original. That's different from,
Yeah, that's a bit of a thing. We can talk afterwards about like what they're really doing for training on that stuff. But with phishing emails, we can make them look very super real and do. So
right. Unfortunately, I've been in ones that really didn't look that real, and you're still clicking through.
That's kind of sad. But there was a thing I was going to say, and I don't remember what it was now. That train's gone.
I was just going to ask, the third example you actually did use some badges. So
they used badges. I didn't try to clone it.
You had. Oh,
third, yeah.
Yeah, third example. And it's kind of a moot point since you can sit there and mess with logs out in the open and nobody can say anything. But I'm just thinking about, like, if you hadn't had those badges, would that have changed the dynamic any?
Probably, it would have made it slightly more difficult for us. We still would have gained access.
Yes.
We proven by the fact that I could tailgate. The likelihood of that happening seems to be pretty high. They were low frequency badges, and we could just clone them, bump it into people if we wanted to go that route as well. Once we're inside, the likelihood of us finding the document that had all of the badges in it is still pretty high. So.
Just a question about the companies that you interviewed. Did they have visitation, like policies for visitors and people that come in? Did that even exist?
I don't know. We don't get into those weeds. They say, here's a building, go break into it. And I say, aye, Captain. Or, I'm already in. No, I got another short story if you guys want to hear another one. I think we got about 5 minutes. Sound about right? I can do 5 minutes. This one, I thought about talking about this one and then held off on it because I don't like to give away too many secrets on things. My favorite bit of these kind of engagements is when we are able to do them kind of back to back. Not quite full red team have access to anything, but when we kind of do one engagement and then the other, kind of stack them. And mainly when I can do a fish before a physical, because if I can do a fish before a physical, then my chances of the physical going right are much higher because I can place myself inside of areas. So I was doing a physical for someone outside of the country, and they had roots here. This happened to have something over there, and I was doing a thing over there, and they wanted me to get into their data center as well as this small office. I might have told a lot of you people this story already, so if just close your ears for a second. So phishing engagement kicks off. I thought long and hard all of about 2 minutes of how I was going to go about doing this whole arc and decided I'm going to cause as much havoc with a phishing email as I can so I can show up on site and say, hi, I'm with Rapid7 Incident Response. I need access to everything to fix what happened last week. That sounds like a great idea to me. I got the branding, I got everything, I got the business cards already. Like, this is going to play out nicely. But it turned out one of the VPs of some portion of an organization for them was in my phishing targets, and he got very upset about what I did because I did a lot of bad stuff. I made a lot of noise. And he wasn't too happy about it. And that kind of put a damper on the physical stuff because I was on site, and they kind of started like restricting when and what I could do. Data center was now off the table, and it came down to like the 11th hour for the physical. They're like, all right, you can go on site. You can't do, like, here's some handcuffs and good luck. I'm like, cool. I got like 5 hours before my flight leaves to go back to the States. I'm I'm gonna go buy some baguettes. And I went and bought a bunch of pastries and walked up to the door. Gonna try, like, I was just, this here is just a roll of ball, see if this sticks. And had a box of pastries. I tried to tailgate behind a guy, like catch him as he was walking, but he went just a little too fast for me. So I was standing with a box of pastries in front of this call box, looking to push a button and trying to decide if I was going to or not. And this other gentleman walks up, it's like, oh, hey, you're going to company? I was like, yeah, I got donuts. Someone ordered donuts. He's like, oh, cool, come on in. So I got inside the building, and then we walked around the hallways, and I walked past their door intentionally, and he was like, no, dude, it's over here. I was probably more like, no, dude, over here. It was a horrible accent. And he badges me into their office space, and I walk in, and he's like, do you know where you're going? I was like, yeah, I know where I'm going. I'm going right over here. This looks like a break room. I went into their break room, threw the donuts on the table, hid in a conference room, did all of my point of contact stuff, and they were like sending emails internally like, I still got in, whatever, man. But I had very limited time, so I threw my business card on my point of contact's desk because it's like my calling card. I made it in. And then stood around for several hours trying to just talk to these people about getting in touch with my point of contact, because I happened to let it slip that I was looking for his desk. And so they're talking to them for several hours without anybody kicking me out, until one guy happened to reach out to the point of contact, like, he's not gonna, this isn't real, you need to leave. And I was like, all right, cool, can I have your coffee mug? And they're like, yeah, you can have a coffee mug. So I got their coffee mug. So that's kind of the soup and nuts of it. There's a lot that was wrong with that one, but that's a mess, so we're not really gonna break that one apart. Yeah, I caught my flight. I made it. I'm here. Safe and sound. All of me's here. So with that, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys listening to my really silly stories about breaking into things and stealing people's stuff.